It's a case that's become a national spectacle.
A lot of people think things aren't adding up.
Karen Reed's being framed.
It could be any one of us.
Both outside and inside the courtroom.
Karen Reed was framed.
But at its core, the Karen Reed murder trial and death of Boston police officer John O'Keefe is simply a tragedy.
It's hell. I never thought we'd be in this position.
For Reed's family, court has already taken its toll just 2 days into testimony.
If you've been in that courtroom and if you've listened, it's difficult not to feel the same way I feel and my family feels.
But this trial comes after a long 2-year journey, with a father holding on to the hope and belief that his daughter is innocent.
She's an incredible, incredible daughter. I'm just a proud father of Karen Reed.
John O'Keefe's family also seeking justice. O'Keefe was just 46 years old when his life was cut short in January of 2022. His family, first responders, and more attending his funeral that year.
Definitely one of the worst weeks of our life. I don't know, I just can only pray that my family gets the answers they need.
O'Keefe was also a father figure after his sister passed away from an aggressive brain tumor.
My brother, he took on responsibility of raising our niece and nephew.
First on the stand Monday, Paul O'Keefe having to relive the day he found out his brother had died, finding the courage to describe seeing him for the first time in the hospital.
I mean, he was pretty banged up. He had his eyes had swelled up.
O'Keefe's sister-in-law, Erin, tearfully remembering that morning.
I woke up to my husband on the phone with his mother saying he's going to be okay, he's going to be okay.
Two families hoping a jury can find justice as this trial runs its course.
It is only the jury, in other words, you folks, who can decide whether the prosecution has proved its case beyond a reasonable doubt.
Kirsten is now joining us in studio. Kirsten, you've been following this trial since jury selection. Now here we are with testimony. You've been outside the courthouse, too, where we've seen so many Karen Reed supporters, some who are not. Can you just talk about the atmosphere? Has it changed from jury selection to trial now that we're hearing from some of these witnesses?
It certainly has. So during jury selection, there was obviously a lot of interest, especially for the people who are free Karen Reed all the way. They've been out there since day one, even during jury selection. But now that testimony has really started, even just Monday, the first day of opening statements, we saw networks out there for the first time. Court TV is pooled, so you have people there getting really involved in this case for the first time. So that's been really interesting. This was a very highly anticipated day in this murder trial, hearing from the lead investigator, Trooper Michael Proctor. He is the subject of an internal affairs investigation by his own department. And today he was asked to read aloud some of his text messages. And we do want to warn you, some of that language may be considered disturbing.
I recognize that to be the housing unit.
For the first time in the Karen Reed murder trial, Massachusetts State Police Trooper Michael Proctor taking the stand, showing jurors pieces of evidence he says were collected from Reed's SUV.
It says taillight, one large piece of plastic, color red, one small piece of red plastic.
Trooper Proctor also addressing this video shown last week, capturing Reed backing up into John O'Keefe's vehicle.
We wanted to at least go document that there was no damage to Mr. O'Keefe's car.
The defense claiming this is how her taillight was damaged, but Proctor disputing that.
There's no red pieces of taillight which would show up in the contrast of the white snow.
But it was these damning text messages about the case that had Proctor's credibility and integrity in question.
Yep, so these came from me. From all accounts, he didn't do anything wrong. She's a whack job.
Proctor admitting discussing the case with friends, family, and fellow officers.
I text my wife waiting to lock this whack job up.
Calling Reed profanities, making explicit comments about her appearance, and joking about her medical condition.
No nude so far.
At one point, Proctor texting about looking through Reed's cell phone for nude photos.
I'm going through his client's phone right now, correct?
Yes, after the picture, sir, yes.
Who's the client?
I was referring to Miss Reed.
Proctor again claiming that these were just jokes.
The rest of the unprofessional and regrettable comments are something I'm not proud of.
Outside of court, few words.
Karen, how was it hearing those messages?
I'd like the state police to say something about the language they've heard.
And I did reach out to Massachusetts State Police regarding the conduct in some of these text messages read aloud. We're still waiting to hear back from them. Meanwhile, Trooper Proctor will be back on the stand first thing Wednesday morning. We're live here in Dedham tonight. I'm Kirsten Glavin, NBC 10 Boston. A lot of data was presented today, from cell phones to DNA evidence. Outside of court this afternoon, I asked Karen Reed if she intends to testify.
Back on the stand Thursday, Massachusetts State Police Detective Lieutenant Brian Tully.
Starting at 12:33 a.m. to 6:03 a.m., there were 53 phone calls from Miss Reed to a phone number associated with John O'Keefe.
The lieutenant recounting the steps he believes Karen Reed took the night John O'Keefe was killed, based on cell phone data and street cameras.
It's important to figure out the movements of someone that we're investigating for a crime.
Reed's defense asking about why investigators never went into the home, and later asking about the number of items Tully bagged in evidence.
There are 5 items in that bag, or in those 2 bags, right? Just the plastic.
Correct.
And yet your report very clearly says there were 3.
Forensic DNA analysts also testifying to testing a hair from Reed's SUV, a taillight sample, and DNA samples from troopers Michael Proctor and Yuri Buchanan. Taillight pieces from Reed's SUV matching DNA for John O'Keefe. A hair found on her SUV determined from O'Keefe as well.
We're comparing those references to the mixture that we obtained from the taillight.
A small portion, or the hair, was put into a tube, and then it went through that DNA extraction.
Outside of court, Reed answering several of our questions.
Just saying that John's DNA is on John's clothes. That's all they proved.
And have you made a decision about if you're going to be testifying?
I haven't. I'll do whatever is required. It's up to the attorneys, Kirsten.
How are you feeling about how this is going so far?
Really well, really well. It's a relief. All the hard work we've done and everything we've uncovered is finally coming to light.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Also outside of court today, someone did come by dressed as a red Solo cop, holding a Free Karen Reed sign referencing what law enforcement used to collect some of the evidence in this case. We'll have more on that spectacle coming up at 7 o'clock. But for now, we're live here in Dedham. I'm Kirsten Glavin, NBC 10 Boston. And in terms of people here, this was hands down the biggest day of the trial so far. Now it's all eyes watching closely for a verdict. Karen, how are you feeling leaving court today?
Right now, I don't know if nerves are the right word. Anticipation and.
Excuse us. It's a little overwhelming.
Yeah.
Emotions at an all-time high for Karen Reed and her defense team, leaving the entire murder trial in the hands of the jury. Outside of court, hundreds of supporters lining the streets around the courthouse, wearing pink and holding signs.
Not guilty verdicts coming back. I mean, the evidence showed it.
Also leaving members of the Albert family and Jennifer McCabe, who all testified but declined to comment.
Would you like to say anything about the closing argument?
Inside, during closing arguments, Reed's defense summarizing an alleged conspiracy to frame Reed for John O'Keefe's death.
Conflicts of interest? Doesn't matter. Just look the other way. Magic hairs, magic glass. Look the other way. Late night calls and Google searches, falsified affidavits, inverted videos, and butt dials galore. Just look the other way.
The Commonwealth laying out a timeline of events from the drinks at the bar to voicemails left on O'Keefe's phone. Assistant District Attorney Adam Lally asking jurors to stick to the facts.
What the constellation of the facts and the evidence ineluctably demonstrate here is that the defendant drove her vehicle in reverse for 24.2 miles per hour for 62.5 feet, struck Mr. O'Keefe, causing those catastrophic head injuries, leaving him incapacitated and freezing to death.
Mr. Lally, I have to stop you. You've gone over.
Now, national and international media outlets are also out here waiting for a verdict to come down. That is on top of the hundreds of supporters that we've seen out here also standing by.
Right, there is so much information to break down this case. We want to get right over to our NBC 10's Kirsten Glavin with a big breaking development tonight.
Kirsten, you just got new information about this lead state police investigator relieved of his duties. Break it all down for us.
Yeah, Trooper Michael Proctor was under an internal affairs investigation by his own department, and we now know he has been suspended. This comes after several jaw-dropping moments during this trial where he was asked to read aloud some of his vulgar and disturbing text messages about Karen Reed. Massachusetts State Police trooper and lead investigator in the Karen Reed murder trial, Michael Proctor, relieved from his duty effective immediately. State Police confirming the action in a statement saying, quote, "Upon learning today's result, the department took immediate action to relieve Trooper Michael Proctor of duty and formally transfer him out of the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office State Police Detectives Unit. This follows our previous decision to open an internal affairs investigation after information about serious misconduct emerged in testimony at the trial."
I'm declaring a mistrial in this case.
The suspension coming just hours after a mistrial was declared. NBC 10 Boston investigators confronting Proctor at his house just before the announcement.
We'd like to ask you some questions. Do you think your actions impacted the outcome of the trial? Get off your lawn. I'm not on your lawn. I'm on the street. Do you have anything you'd like to say?
I fully support my husband. Karen Reed is a murderer.
To come back.
The jury unable to determine a verdict after 5 days and more than 27 hours of deliberations. Last Monday, ending 29 total days of testimony, with the prosecution calling 68 witnesses in this case and the defense calling 6.
The deep division is not due to a lack of effort or diligence, but rather a sincere adherence to our individual principles and moral convictions.
This note delivered to Judge Beverly Cannoni from the jury, stating they've been deeply divided by fundamental differences and opinions. The Norfolk District Attorney's Office confirming they intend to retry the case. Outside of court, Reed's defense signaling this isn't the end.
This is what it looks like when you bring false charges against an innocent person. The Commonwealth did their worst. They brought the weight of the state based on spurious charges, based on compromised investigation and investigators, and compromised witnesses.
Free Karen Reed supporters down the road telling NBC 10 Boston they're not going anywhere.
This case is a travesty of justice and a mockery of justice.
My initial expression was automatic, not guilty. But as we learned this case, nothing happens the way it's supposed to happen.
Oh, we'll be back. We'll be back. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I've never met Karen, but I love Karen, and Karen could be any one of us.
Now, this was no doubt an emotional day for John O'Keefe's family, his mother wiping away tears in court. They declined to comment, leaving the courthouse this afternoon. Now, as far as where we go from here, there is a status hearing scheduled for July 22nd. The judge and attorneys for both sides will go over when this case could possibly be retried. We're live here in Dedham tonight. I'm Kirsten Glavin, NBC 10 Boston.